Have you ever been so tired of being invisible that you'd rather be alone on Christmas than pretend to be grateful for scraps? That was me this year. And when my golden child brother sent me a text demanding I watch his kids for a week while he went on a cruise, not asking, demanding, I typed back just 2 letters that changed everything. No. What happened next tore our family apart, but for the first time in 30 years I finally felt free. If you've ever been the family scapegoat while someone else got all the glory, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video if you believe everyone deserves respect, and drop a comment telling me about a time you finally stood up for yourself. Trust me, this story will hit close to home for anyone who's ever felt invisible in their own family. My name is Heather, and I spent the first 34 years of my life being the family's backup plan. You know the type. The one they call when they need something, but somehow forget exists when good things are being handed out. Let me paint you a picture of what Christmas looked like in the Wilson household growing up. Picture a living room that looked like a toy store had exploded, but only on one side, my brother David's side. Mountains of wrapped boxes, the biggest bike, the latest video games, remote control cars that probably cost more than my mom's monthly grocery budget. David would tear through his presents like a tornado, paper flying everywhere, Mom and Dad laughing and taking pictures of every single moment. And me? I'd sit cross-legged on the carpet with maybe 3 small gifts. A sweater from the discount rack, a book I didn't ask for. One memorable year when I was 12, I got nothing at all under the tree. When I asked Mom why, she sighed and said, "Oh, honey, be grateful you don't have the pressure David has. He's got such high expectations to live up to." Pressure. That was their favorite word for David. Everything he got was because of this mysterious pressure he was under. The new clothes because he needed to look good at school. The expensive sports equipment because he was on the team. The money for movies and dates because social connections were important for his future. But here's what pressure looked like from where I sat. David got rewarded for breathing while I got lectured for asking for basic attention. When he brought home C's and D's, Dad would pat his shoulder and say, "You'll get 'em next time, champ." When I brought home straight A's, the response was usually, "That's nice, dear. Can you help me with dinner?" I became the family's Swiss Army knife. Need someone to babysit David's friends when he threw parties? Call Heather. Need someone to clean up the mess afterward? Heather's got it. Need someone to drive across town to pick up David when his car broke down at 2 a.m.? Well, Heather doesn't have any plans that matter. For 3 decades, I'd played this role perfectly. I was the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who never caused trouble. Every time they needed something, my answer was automatic. Of course, no problem. Even when it meant canceling my own plans, even when it meant spending my weekends doing favors instead of living my own life, even when it meant watching from the sidelines as David got credit for things I'd helped him achieve. I told myself this was what family meant, that love was earned through service, that maybe, if I just kept being useful enough, they'd finally see me as more than just the backup plan. But this Christmas was different. This Christmas I was sitting alone in my 1-bedroom apartment, while my family was probably gathered around Mom's dinner table, probably not even noticing my empty chair. The radiator was making those old building noises, clanking and groaning like it was complaining about the cold. I had one little candle burning on my windowsill, not for any holiday spirit, but just so the place wouldn't feel so empty. That's when my phone lit up with a text from David. No Merry Christmas. No, how are you doing? Just, "You're watching Emma and Jake next week, while Sarah and I cruise the Caribbean. Flights Tuesday." I stared at that message for a long time. Not a question, not even a please, just an assumption that I'd drop everything, like always. Emma and Jake were David's twins, cute kids, but a handful. 7 years old and full of energy that could power a small city. A week with them meant no sleep, no peace, and definitely no pay. David and his wife Sarah made good money, but somehow they never thought to compensate me for a week of full-time childcare. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct I'd developed over 34 years was screaming at me to type "sure, no problem." That's what good Heather would do. Good Heather would rearrange her whole life, use up her vacation days, and smile while doing it. But something inside me had finally cracked. Maybe it was spending Christmas alone while they enjoyed their perfect family dinner. Maybe it was realizing that David had never once asked how I was doing, never once offered to help me with anything, never once treated me like a sister instead of an employee. I typed 2 letters. No. Just like that. 2 letters that felt like jumping off a cliff. The next morning, my doorbell rang at 8 a.m. sharp. I opened it to find David and Sarah standing there with their matching luggage, looking like they were checking into a hotel. David had that smile he always wore when he expected the world to revolve around him, confident, casual, like he'd never heard the word no in his life. "Hey sis," he said, already wheeling his suitcase past me. "Didn't get your text. We're heading to the airport in a few hours." For the first time in my entire life, my voice didn't shake when I stood up to my brother. "Actually, David, I meant what I said. No, I'm not watching the kids." It was like watching someone's face when they walk into a glass door they didn't see coming. His smile froze, then twisted into something ugly. Sarah's mouth fell open, like I'd just announced I was joining the circus. "What do you mean, no?" David's voice had that edge it got when things didn't go his way. "We already paid for this cruise, Heather. The kids love staying with you. Find a babysitter," I said simply. "Or take them with you, but I'm not available." Sarah grabbed David's arm, whispering something urgent in his ear. I caught words like refund and cancel and ungrateful. They stood there for another minute, David's jaw working like he was chewing nails, before they turned and left without another word. The sound of their suitcase wheels scraping down my hallway felt like a line being drawn in the sand. The next day, I found a note taped to my apartment door in David's handwriting. "You'll regret this, Heather. The family remembers." A threat. After 34 years of being their on-call help, he was threatening me for having boundaries. That night, I sat holding that note, and something shifted in my chest. I started remembering things I'd buried for years, like the time when I was 16 and got accepted to my dream college, but Mom and Dad said they couldn't afford it because David needed a new car for his senior year. Like the time I was 25 and finally saved enough for a vacation, but David begged me to loan him the money for his wedding deposit. Money I never saw again. Like last year when I was in the hospital with appendicitis, and David never even visited because he was busy with his fantasy football draft. 3 days later my phone rang. David's number, but I could hear music and laughter in the background, ship sounds. They'd found someone else to watch the kids and gone on their cruise anyway. "You ruined everything," he slurred into the phone. He'd obviously been drinking. "Sarah's parents had to fly in to watch Emma and Jake. Do you know how embarrassing that was? Mom's right about you. You've always been the selfish one." That word hit me like a slap. Selfish. The same word they'd used to dismiss every need I'd ever expressed, every boundary I'd tried to set, every time I'd asked for basic consideration. "I don't think wanting a week's notice before major babysitting is selfish, David." "You'll regret this when you have nobody left," he snapped. "We're all you've got, Heather. Without family, you're nothing." The line went dead. And then the avalanche started. Dad called first, his voice cold and disappointed. "Heather, honey, I don't know what's gotten into you. David says you refuse to help with the kids. That's not like you." "Maybe that's the problem, Dad. Maybe I've been too much like a doormat and not enough like a person." "Don't be dramatic. Family helps family. That's how it works." Mom called next, crying so hard I could barely understand her. "How could you hurt your brother like this? He's always looked up to you. You broke his heart, Heather, and mine too." Looked up to me? In what universe? But I didn't argue. I just listened to her sob about how disappointed she was, how she'd raised me better than this, how I was tearing the family apart. Even my Aunt Carol called. David had apparently launched a full campaign, telling everyone his version of the story, how his selfish sister had abandoned him in his time of need, how I'd become cold and cruel, how worried they all were about my mental state. It was like being buried alive under an avalanche of guilt and manipulation. Every voice from my childhood came back to haunt me, telling me I was wrong, I was bad, I was the problem. But you know what? For the first time in my life, I didn't bend. Christmas Day came and went. No family dinner invitation, no phone calls wishing me well. Just silence from the people who'd claimed to love me, but only when I was useful. I spent the evening in my little apartment, just me and that flickering candle. The radiator kept making its old building noises, but somehow they didn't sound lonely anymore. They sounded peaceful. I thought about all those years I'd begged for a seat at their table, when I could have been building my own life instead. All the energy I'd poured into earning love that was never really there. All the pieces of myself I'd given away, hoping someone would finally see me as worth keeping around. Sitting there in the quiet, I realized something profound. I wasn't the selfish one. They were. They'd taken my kindness and twisted it into obligation. They'd taken my love and turned it into a weapon against me. When I blew out that candle before bed, the room went dark, but inside me something bright and strong had finally turned on. For the first time in 34 years, I didn't regret standing up for myself. 6 months later, I haven't heard from any of them. My phone is quieter, but my life is fuller. I've made real friends, people who value me for who I am, not what I can do for them. I've taken that vacation I always wanted. I've started saying no to things that don't serve me and yes to things that do. Sometimes love means letting go of people who only see you as useful. Sometimes the family you build is better than the one you were born into. If this story hit home for you, you're not alone. Hit that like button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Subscribe if you believe everyone deserves to be valued for who they are, not just what they provide. And drop a comment. I want to hear about the moment you finally stood up for yourself. What was your no moment? Remember, you don't owe anyone your peace of mind, not even family. Until next time, keep standing up for yourself,